Hey guys, this is the MMA breakdown doing predictions for UFC 191, Johnson versus Dodson 2. This takes place September 5th in Las Vegas, Nevada. Johnson versus Dodson. I'm just not really excited about the main event, mainly because of Dodson's last performance over his win over Zach Makovsky. He just looked like he was fighting at 50% of his potential. I actually think Johnson's going to dominate him here, and I actually think every fight on the main card is kind of a mismatch. But moreover, I just think Demetrius Johnson's really unfortunate that they keep trying to push him as a pay-per-view headliner when this guy has just not had any luck. I mean, he was on the UFC 174 card that was the one that sold like 100,000 pay-per-views, and everyone just ridiculed. And then he was going to fight on the UFC 177 card where they were going to do the flyweight title fight in the co-main, and then the Dillashaw Barao rematch in the main event. And then UFC 178 Jones fell out, and Johnson had to fill in there as the headliner. And he always really impresses in his fight, but they had to put him in that position. That Jones Cormier situation that left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and they're throwing Johnson in there, expecting him to be a remedy for that, and it just wasn't the same card after Jones fell out. So. And then he headlined the 186 card, another card that people were just not excited about. And it's unfortunate because Johnson's a great fighter. But it's the same thing here. They just kind of threw this card together in the last couple of months. I can't remember what UFC event I was watching, but they announced Johnson versus Dodson 2, and it's a guy he's fought before, and it's a guy who did not look good at all in his return fight. He looked athletically diminished, and just again seemed to be fighting at 50% of his potential. So I just don't think there's much to get excited about there. But let's get to the predictions. And as I'm recording this right now, Raquel Pennington was scheduled to face Liz Carmouche after Leslie Smith fell out. And Raquel Pennington now doesn't have an opponent because Carmouche fell out. So if they give her a new opponent there, unless it's a debuting fighter, I'll just make that prediction video and append it to the end of this video. So that might not be very convenient, but I don't think many people really care about that fight anyways, and I want to do my predictions now, so that's what I'll do. Alright, starting off with the Fight Pass preliminary card at lightweight, Joaquim Silva versus Nazareno Malegarie. These are TUF Brazil vets of the latest season, TUF Brazil 4, and I'm definitely taking Malegarie here. Joaquim Silva won a decision. I can't tell you who. I don't remember. I don't remember the fight terribly well, but it was mainly a stand-up fight, and he seemed to land more shots. Other than that, I can't really break down his game too much. But Malegarie, this guy really made an impression on me. I can't remember who he fought, but it was his first fight in the house, and he absolutely just beat the fuck out of this guy that he fought. He took him down, completely ragdolled him, and just had a relentless, heavy ground and pound for the entire fight, and eventually got the stoppage in the second round. It was violent and brutal and very dominant. And then he fought the eventual finalist, Fernando Bruno, in the semifinals, and didn't have the same kind of performance. He seemed outsized, really. Bruno, was beating him on the feet, connecting on more shots, and then on the ground, he just didn't seem to be able to physically scramble or compete with Bruno, but did take him 3 rounds to a decision, but did lose the fight. I just think Malegarie had that really standout performance, and it was more impressive than what Silva did, in my opinion. So, not going off of much, but I think Malegarie is going to win this. All right, next up, middleweight fight, Joe Riggs versus Ron Stallings. This fight, I think, is kind of hard to call. I want to go with Riggs here. Ron Stallings, to me, just hasn't really seemed like a guy who belongs in the UFC. His first fight against Uriah Hall was pretty much dominated, got dropped, and then they stopped the fight because of the cut. And then his last fight against, I don't even remember who it was, Justin Jones, another fighter who was in his second fight in the UFC and did not look good in his debut. Stallings got the decision there. Wasn't terribly dominant. I actually remember it being a really close fight and just looks like a marginal fighter, in my opinion. Joe Riggs, once you snap your neck on your own takedown, I think it's time to hang up the gloves. But, he has that really persistent wrestling game, really is desperate to get the fight to the ground, and I don't know if Stallings can stop that. It didn't work out against Patrick Cote in his last fight. I think he actually got the first takedown of the fight, but then Cote out-wrestled and out-grappled him for the rest of the fight. So, Joe Riggs isn't in his athletic prime at all, far past it, and, I could definitely see him losing this if it stays on the feet, or I could just see him not being athletic enough to dominate with his wrestling. But, I watched him on Fight Master, fought really low-level guys there, but did have a very consistent plan of attack, and that was getting the takedown and just riding out top position, smothering the guy. So I think he can, I'm going to assume he can do that to Stallings, another low-level fighter. I'm going to take Riggs for the decision, but I would be wary of that pick. All right, next up, the Fox Sports 1 prelim card at featherweight, Clay Collard versus Thiago Trator. Another fight, it's kind of interesting and tough to call. I'm going to go with Clay Collard here, I think. Thiago Trator, I was impressed with him in his debut. Not overly impressed, but had a clear-cut decision win over Akbar Areola. Landed whatever he wanted to, landing kicks and punches from distance, and Areola didn't do anything. And of course, that's not a high level of competition, a very low one actually. And then in his last fight against Mike De La Torre, I thought he was going to win that fight and just got clipped. Got knocked out cold. And Clay Collard, the younger guy, more youthful and seems to have more of a dynamic game, although in his last fight against Gabriel Benitez was just roughhoused and beaten up in that fight. You can blame it on the altitude, but his striking did not look good. He does not have fundamental striking, but he uses a lot of unorthodox movement and footwork. I liked his win over Alex White. I liked how he competed in his debut on short notice against Max Holloway, even though he got finished there. Collard, I just think the diverse movement, being the younger guy, I think that's going to be enough to get past Trator. I'm not really high on Trator anymore after that knockout loss to De La Torre. So I'm going to go with Collard, but another fight that I think could really go either way. But I think Collard's just the safer pick because of the movement. He gets the occasional takedown in his fight. It just seems, I think he has more tools. I'm going with Collard. All right, and then the next fight is the women's bantamweight fight, Raquel Pennington versus a to-be-determined opponent. So we'll skip over that. And like I said, if there's an opponent that's not a debuting fighter filling in here, I will make a prediction for that and just attach it to the end of this video. Next up, a bantamweight fight, Francisco Rivera versus John Lineker. This, to me, is probably the toughest fight to call on the card. Francisco Rivera has really turned his career around. Has become a really solid Muay Thai striker. Showed power in his last fight, just coming over and running over Alex Caceres. But he was exposed by Takeo Mitsugaki on the ground. Was not able to do much from there. Actually got dropped in the first round and then just got out grappled the rest of the fight. And his previous knockouts before that Mitsugaki fight, his knockout wins. He knocked out George Roop and Edwin Figueroa. He just expended all of his energy to get those knockouts, and he just really goes for broke. And in both of those fights, after he got the knockout, he fell to the ground in exhaustion, and that's just a sign that he's really putting everything into going for those finishes. And I don't know if he has the game to go the distance with Lineker. I think the fight against Faber, he was actually on his way to winning. I thought he won that first round, and Faber really had no success until he got the eye poke. So that could be a sign of improvement. But Lineker, despite all of his weight issues, I just think he's the better fighter. This is his first fight at bantamweight. I don't know if he'll have the size advantage, but I have the feeling that being the Brazilian, he can take this to the ground and out-grapple Rivera. We haven't seen that from him in the UFC, but I have a feeling that he's capable of that. And on the feet, I think he just has more raw power than Rivera. Not as diverse an array of strikes. Rivera likes to mix in the head kicks here and there. But Lineker does have hand speed. He has big power, and his striking has really evolved from his first fights in the UFC, where he's just throwing haymakers, overhands, things like that, to putting combinations together, countering guys, looking a lot better. His fight with Ian McCall, I was really impressed with him. He had to come back from losing the first round, and then just let the aggression take over, and was able to outstrike McCall and shut down his grappling game. So I'm going to go with Lineker here. Rivera is good. He's improved, but I think Lineker is just a higher level of fighter, so I'm going with Lineker. All right, the main event, or the last fight on the prelim card at lightweight, Ross Pearson versus Paul Felder. Paul Felder returning on a very short turnaround, a 1 month turnaround from his last fight against Edson Barboza, where I actually thought he competed well for his third fight in the UFC. It was a really close fight. And, Barboza just did a little bit more, but Felder was there the entire time and trading unorthodox strikes with him and, landing some nice elbows. I think this is just a complete squash match. Ross Pearson, his chin, has been exposed. Iaquinta knocked him out. Iaquinta knocked him out in that fight. Even against Gray Maynard, he got the knockout, but was taken down early and ate some shots. And then Pearson also coming off of a really quick turnaround. His last fight against Evan Dunham, was just taken down and couldn't do anything off of his back. If Iaquinta was able to knock him out, I see Felder with all of his own orthodox strikes and really clean technique. He's able to land check knees and elbow strikes, spinning kicks, and the spinning back fist he knocked out Castillo with. I see him just getting Pearson out of there pretty easily. Pearson just doesn't have the volume anymore. His power has improved. But he used to be, I think, a lot more technical, through a lot a higher volume of strikes, and use a lot more movement than he does now. And I think he's a worse fighter because of it. Losing to Evan Dunham at this stage of his career is just not a good sign. It really shows that he's been stagnant for a long time. And I mean, his most relevant wins in the last few years, George Soteropoulos and Ryan Couture, which doesn't say much. The fight over Diego Sanchez, yeah, he won, but even in that fight, we've seen other guys completely shut out Diego Sanchez. Miles Jury, Melendez had the brawl with him. And, Pearson caught him a few times, but, just didn't really get a whole lot done. And did knock out Sam Stout, but I don't know if that really means much either, given where Sam Stout is now. But Paul Felder, I think, should get the knockout here. All right, we spent long enough on that fight. Onto the main card at women's strawweight, Paige Vanzant versus Alex Chambers. And like I said at the beginning, I think this main card, every single fight, is really, I don't want to say easy to call. I mean, things can happen, but I think these are really mismatches, at least how I view them. But Vanzant versus Alex Chambers, I think this should be a really easy fight for Paige Vanzant. Just do MMA math. She finished Kylan Curran in her debut, and Curran was just really giving Chambers an ass whooping in her last fight before just getting caught really out of nowhere with an armbar submission. Chambers getting it off of her back. But up to that point, Chambers just had nothing. She was on TUF. Was it 20? TUF 20, the all-women's season. She fought Rose Namajunas, I believe, and was submitted. She was submitted by Rose Namajunas. From what I remember, she was dominated. And also fought Aisling Daly in the finale where she was submitted. So, she's not, for being a primarily a submission fighter, she's not very good on the ground. Curran was wiping the floor with her. She was on her back eating punches most of the time, and on the feet was just getting waxed. And Vanzant has a really great top control game against Felice Herrig. She was able to maintain top position in all of the scrambles and keep control on the ground, and is really relentless with her ground and pound. So I expect her to take Chambers down and stay on top of her and pound her out for the finish. So got Vanzant for the TKO. All right, next up at light heavyweight, Jan Blachowicz versus Corey Anderson. Another fight that, first of all, this fight to me just does not belong on the pay-per-view at all. But it's also a squash match. Blachowicz in his debut against Ilir Latifi, I thought looked like a high-level kickboxer. Putting him down with one body kick, and that was it for Latifi. And the fight against Anthony Johnson wasn't against Jimmy Manuwa, the loss, didn't look good. Manuwa was basically able to use his size and athleticism just to push him against the fence, and Blachowicz seemed to have no answer for it. That didn't look good, but at the same time, it's not like he got beat up. It was just a very underwhelming performance. Corey Anderson, I don't think, is physical enough to do that to Blachowicz. I don't think that's his fighting style. Against Volante, who was very aggressive. I actually thought he looked good in that fight, even though he was eating a ton of leg kicks and did nothing to defend against them. He was still landing punches up until the end, and I thought it looked like he was getting close to a finish on Volante, but ate that huge overhand from Volante, and it put his lights out, which is not a good sign when you're dominating the entire fight. You're just getting leg kicked and then you just eat a punch at the end that ends it all. So I'm going with Jan Blachowicz here. I just think he's going to be a way higher level kickboxer and have a big power advantage. Anderson has wrestling as well. He could take him down, but I think Blachowicz is going to establish his dominance on the feet before it becomes a wrestling match. So I like Blachowicz. And next up, another light heavyweight fight, Anthony Johnson versus Jimmy Manuwa. This fight, I like this matchup better. I like this. This is a better matchup than the Blachowicz-Corey Anderson fight, but I think it was supposed to be Johnson versus Blachowicz originally, and then they changed it, which makes sense. He was supposed to fight Blachowicz, and now he's fighting Manuwa, which makes sense because Manuwa got the win over Blachowicz. But I actually think this is going to be an easier fight for Johnson. Manuwa is not a bad fighter, even though that fight against Blachowicz was just really stinky. He looked like he was scared to strike with him, and literally just wanted to push him up against the fence. But against Alexander Gustafsson, was training with him, landed some clean shots on Gustafsson, eventually went down, he ate the knee, fell down, but Anthony Johnson should just have a huge power advantage. If he comes forward, I think he has enough of that sheer power and aggression to hurt Manuwa. I think Manuwa is dangerous enough. He could catch Johnson if he makes a mistake, but I really think Johnson will dominate here. I really like the performance, Johnson's win over Phil Davis, where he really kind of held back and just countered Davis, waited for him to come to him, and was able to use his striking to really defend the takedowns. I think he can fight like that against Manuwa, but Manuwa's not really a pressure fighter. He's more of a counter guy himself. He's very long and rangy, has a good jab and good strikes from distance, but Johnson just has that power. Railroaded Little Nog, and almost had Cormier in big trouble early in that fight. And I don't see Manuwa taking him down at all. I think Johnson would have the advantage even in the wrestling here. So I got to go with Rumble Johnson to get the knockout. All right, the co-main event, heavyweight fight, Andre Arlovski versus Frank Mir. This is such a fun fight. I've loved Arlovski's turnaround more than anyone. I love that fight against Travis Brown. Not only was it really funny just because of all the bizarre strikes he was landing, the back fist off of the cross. I just loved it. And Frank Mir, he's picked up some wins recently as well, but it's just not on the same level as Arlovski. Against Bigfoot Silva, I think you saw a more technical performance where he really found his range and set up the fight-ending strike. And then against Brown, he just threw down and had the power. Both of these guys have suspect chins. Arlovski, back in Strikeforce, put out by Fedor, and didn't Brett Rogers also knock this guy out, I think? Karatanov knocked him out. Yeah, Brett Rogers finished him. But has seemed to recover from that, but I think Mir's going down this fight. You know, got the knockout over Duffy, and kind of similar to Arlovski's fight with Brown. He just went in there and started trading wildly with Duffy. He was lucky to come out on top, but he looked like he was, he didn't quite know where he was in that fight. He looked wobbled and hurt from some of Duffy's punches. Eventually landed the fight-ending strike. But if these guys start trading, Frank Mir is infamous for going down to guys with power who can connect. You know, Shane Carwin, Junior Dos Santos, even Josh Barnett recently. So they start trading. I think Arlovski just has the better boxing overall, the better defense, and I like Arlovski to win this. Mir did show some technical improvements against Bigfoot, showing the jab and then coming over the top with the lead hook. That was nice, but I just think Arlovski's boxing technique is going to be on another level than Mir's, and Mir's chin, I think, is a little more suspect. He doesn't get knocked out cold, but is easily hurt. And Arlovski in that Travis Brown fight showed he can take a big shot, he can be dropped and get back up. So I have to go with Arlovski here. I think it'll be interesting if Mir can get it to the ground, and that's always the thing with Mir. But Mir's not a good wrestler. He really isn't. And unless he knocks down Arlovski and jumps on a submission, I don't see him taking him down. So these guys start trading. I really like Arlovski's chances to connect first and put Mir out. His boxing against Brown looked really improved, so I'm taking Arlovski here to get the finish. And then the main event for the flyweight title, Demetrius Johnson versus John Dodson. Like I said at the beginning, I think this is really a walkover fight for Johnson. The first fight was competitive early. Dodson knocked him down a few times, I think in the second or third round. But by the end of the fight, Johnson proved that he had the cardio. He was the one enduring in that fight, and really overwhelmed Dodson and just took over late. Was scoring a lot in the clinch, was landing those knees from the clinch, and just kind of ragdolling Dodson. And the thing about Dodson, even before he had the long layoff due to his injury, his fight against John Moraga, he just waits around way too long. That first round against Moraga, he really did almost nothing, and was able to get the finish. As soon as he decided to explode at the end of that first round, landed I think it was a flying knee that stopped Moraga in between rounds. But before that, he just really wasn't doing much. And I don't think he can wait around like that against Johnson. Johnson gets to work immediately from the opening bell. I think the pressure is going to be too much for Dodson, especially. I didn't like Dodson's chances to win in a rematch against Johnson after he fought Moraga for that reason of just waiting around. And it does say something. There was something to say for his fight-ending power, and when he chooses to explode, he can get the finish quickly. But especially considering his injury layoff and the fight against Makovsky, which I actually thought he lost, and I think some other people did too, but he just looked like he was operating at 50% there. Didn't have the quickness, didn't seem to have the power in his hands, didn't have the explosiveness or the athleticism, like he did in his fight against Montague or Moraga. And if he hasn't recovered from that, if he's not in top athletic shape, he's just going to get run over by Johnson. I really think that. I think we might see Johnson take him down and submit him, because Johnson's really improved his submission offense over the last couple of fights. We saw that against Cariaso, and then getting the last minute submission over Horiguchi. And then on the feet, if he's not in top shape, Johnson will have a huge speed advantage. He'll be all over him with that clinch and setting him up. He'll just have the better boxing, the better combinations. Really, if that was the best he could do against Makovsky, he's not going to have any success on the feet against Demetrius. So I really liked Demetrius to win this fight. If Dodson is as hampered as I expect him to be, and he just starts getting worked over from the first round, I could see Johnson overwhelming him late, getting a late finish, 4th or 5th round. I think he might take Dodson down, get a TKO via ground and pound, or submit him late like he's been doing lately against Horiguchi, and did that against Moraga as well. But yeah, Dodson's his only real chance at winning this fight, I think, is a puncher's chance, and it could be one of those cases where he just didn't look good coming back from the layoff. And if he fights, if he's in returns to the form he was in when he fought Montague and Dodson the first time, and Moraga, he does have that explosiveness and will be a challenge for Johnson early, but Johnson is just such an intelligent fighter and great at figuring guys out and making adjustments during the fight, that I think overcoming that power is not going to be a big challenge for him if Dodson has it. But I really don't expect Dodson to be in great shape here. I'm going to take Johnson for the very dominant win, whether it comes by decision or late finish. But going with Johnson all the way. All right, guys, those are my predictions for UFC 191, Johnson versus Dodson 2. Thank you for watching. And if there's a new opponent for Raquel Pennington, I will include a prediction for that attached to the end of this video. But thank you guys for watching. Take care, and I will be back soon with my predictions for Fight Night Barnett versus Nelson. All right, guys, thank you. Take care, and bye. Hey guys, so I'm back. I just finished that video, the one you just saw last night, and I saw today that they got a replacement for Raquel Pennington and Jessica Andrade. They're doing the rematch. I think it's a really weird fight, not only because both of them have really stagnated as fighters, I think, and are kind of, I think, going downhill a bit, but the rematch really doesn't make any sense. I mean, there's no need for it. It is a short notice fight, though, so I guess not much they could do. But anyways, I think it's kind of even. I could see Pennington getting the win this time. I don't really see why you would pick against her. I don't see why you would pick against Andrade. I don't think much has changed since the first fight. Both fighters have won and lost since then. Both of them, like I said, seem like they've kind of flatlined. Jessica Andrade, I didn't think she looked that great against Sarah Morris. I mean, she was dominating most of the fight, and then at the end nearly got choked out. And Raquel Pennington, she was able to create the finish against Ashley Evans-Smith kind of out of nowhere. Not much was happening in that fight. She was actually losing, getting taken down, and was able to pull out the finish at the end of the round. But then against Holly Holm, didn't look good. It was a more competitive fight than Holm's fight with Marion Renault, but she still didn't impress me at all. Pretty much just got outpointed. It was kind of a close fight, but she just doesn't seem to fight with a sense of urgency. She doesn't really have any real dominant skills. I mean, she can land some strikes here and there, but she does not have a ground game. She doesn't work in takedowns. And on the feet, she's not really skilled enough where she can just lay back and outstrike people, because most of her opponents seem to outstrike her. In the first fight with Jessica Andrade, I remember it being a pretty uneventful affair. I think Andrade held her up against the fence and was able to out-clinch her and pretty much won on position in the first fight. And Andrade, the loss to Renault I thought was really kind of bad. She dropped her early in the fight, followed her to the ground, and then got submitted by a triangle choke. And then after that, in her last fight against Sarah Morris, like I already talked about, she was dominating the whole fight. And when it hit the ground, she got caught in some of the scrambles, but at the end of the fight, getting her back taken and almost choked out, I thought that was really kind of bizarre. That shouldn't be happening, especially against such a low-level opponent like Sarah Morris, and a washout from the Ultimate Fighter. So I don't think either fighter has really improved much. I think they're pretty much the same. I'm just going to go with Andrade. I think she's more aggressive on the feet, more physical. I think she can win in the same way she did in the first fight. Just out-clinch her, hold her up against the fence. But I could also see it being really even, and I could see Pennington outlanding her enough to win the decision. But I don't really see a reason to pick against Andrade. Both fighters are pretty much the same fighters they were in the first matchup. So going with Andrade. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. I'll have my 191, these are my 199 predictions. I'll have my predictions for Barnett versus Nelson out pretty soon. So take care, you guys, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.